This lady worked for a charity that helped people in debt. So she knew exactly what you could and couldn't do. She was the person working for me. You've got to make sure you fill the form in correctly. If it's not absolutely done, all sounds great. She moved in, very personable, paid her first month's rent and her deposit, amazing. Then I went back. I was very unhappy with this person who's working for me because I explicitly told him to check the dates. If you have their full name and their national insurance number, what you can do, so one action I recommend you do, if only one thing. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Property Magic Podcast, which is all about how to protect yourself from bad tenants. Now, I've been lucky over the years. I think I've only had a handful of bad tenants, partly because of some of the precautions I'm going to share with you in this episode of the Property Magic Podcast. However, with the Renters' Rights Bill coming in, which is the largest change in 30 years to the private rental sector, there's no doubt in my mind there's going to be an increase in professional bad tenants who are taking advantage of ill-informed and ill-educated landlords. So let me explain what the changes are and how you can protect yourself. But I'm going to start first of all with a story of probably my worst tenant. Now this was in one of my HMOs, a house of multiple occupation where you rent individual rooms to individual tenants. By the way, I think HMOs is a great strategy to de-risk your investing, because if you have a property you rent to one person, a family or an individual couple, and they stop paying the rent, you have no rental income coming in. However, in an HMO where you might have 5 or 6 people, that's 5 or 6 income streams. If there's 1 or even 2 of those income streams coming in, you're probably going to be okay. You're not likely to have a situation where no rental income is coming in, unless, of course, you've done something wrong and your tenant is coming back for a rent repayment order, which is currently 12 months. So for example, if you haven't given them the prescribed information, if you don't have a license on your property that requires a license, they can come back and claim 12 months worth of rent. That is changing to 24 months of rent. So one of the things you absolutely have to do is you can't treat your property investing as a hobby, as a side hustle. Even if it's part-time, you must treat your investing like a business. You need to be educated to know exactly what are your responsibilities, because even if you have a letting agent looking after your properties for you, you cannot abdicate the responsibility. Ultimately, the buck stops with you. So it's important to understand what is coming as part of this new regulation and make sure you are doing everything you need to do, and check with your letting agent that they are doing everything they need to do, because unfortunately not all letting agents are up to speed. The good ones are taking action. There are some letting agents who don't really know what's going on yet and they're not putting things in place. Now, you do have several months at the time of recording this to get things in place. However, I wouldn't sit back and wait. You want to make sure you're doing things now. So let me go back to this first bad professional tenant I had in one of my HMOs. This was a young lady. She was a graduate. She'd been to university. She had a good professional job, actually working for a charity, a very noble cause, helping people who were in financial difficulty. All sounds great. She moved in, very personable, paid her first month's rent and her deposit, amazing. Then the rent stopped. Now, I had someone in my office looking after these properties at this time, and he was chasing her, and for a while she didn't communicate. Then, oh, I've got a new bank account. So this works for a little bit of time, but after a while I think, hang on a minute, this person is just taking the mickey here. And ultimately, after a few months of not paying, excuses, we thought, you know what? We're going to have to issue a Section 21. Now that's the document we currently use. It's called a no-fault eviction. You can use it to get rid of tenants, but that is being abolished under the new Renters' Rights Bill. Now we can still get tenants out. There's Section 8, which is the main way, and the number of reasons are also increasing. But then we issued a Section 21. And I said to the person working for me, you've got to make sure you fill the form in correctly. If it's not absolutely done to the letter, the judge will throw that out. So anyway, we issue the Section 21, we have a court hearing that I turn up to, and I'm thinking, great, I'm going to get this tenant out, they've not been paying. And by the way, this lady worked for a charity that helped people in debt. So she knew exactly what you could and couldn't do. She was playing the game, basically. So we went to court and I turned up, she wasn't there, and I was thinking, oh, this, and by the way, it's not with a jury, it's just in front of a judge. And I thought, this is amazing, I'm going to get awarded this, I'm going to get my house back, and I can get her out and get a tenant who's going to respect the property, respect me, and pay the rent. She didn't turn up. I thought, it's going to be no problem. Sit down with the judge, and he says, unfortunately, the form has not been done correctly. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh dear. And rather stupidly, when he says you're going to have to reapply, I say, excuse me, Your Honour, does it not matter that this person's been living in the property not paying rent? He said, no, it doesn't matter. The fact that you haven't done the form correctly. And I was shocked by that, but he's correct. And that's the system. You have to do it correctly. So I went back. I was very unhappy with this person who's working for me because I explicitly told him to check the dates. Anyway, never mind. We did it again, and finally we got the notice, and just before the bailiff was supposed to turn up, she actually moved out of the property with all of her possessions. I think she ended up owing me about £4,000. So that's quite a large amount of money, right? Now, many landlords would write that off, put it down to bad experience. Luckily, and here's one thing you need to do to protect yourself against bad tenants. When a tenant moves in, you want to get their name, their full name, and their date of birth, and you check that with some photographic ID, ideally their passport. Now, some people do fake passports, but most people are not going to do that. So check it against the passport. Then also get their national insurance number. Now, you can get their national insurance number from their wage slip, okay? And I think it's really important because if you have their full name and their national insurance number, what you can do, once they've left your property, you can go on moneyclaim.gov.uk, put in a claim for the money they owe you. And what you do is you actually get the claim sent to the last known address you have for them, which of course is the property that they were living in. Now, if they don't get that claim and don't contest it, guess what? You'll get awarded that money, which is due to you, and that's what should happen. And then when you have their full name and national insurance number, you can use someone to track them down, and you have up to 6 years to claim your rent back. So I let this settle for a while, let her go and live somewhere else. About 2 years later, we tracked her down, and the High Court sheriff, who went on my behalf, was able to get some money off her straight away and also get an attachment to her earnings. Not only did she have to pay that, she had to pay the costs as well. So ultimately, although she was a professional bad tenant, she knew exactly what she was doing, I was able to get the money back. And I want you to be able to get your money back if someone tries to take advantage of you. The other thing I suggest you do is, rather than just doing the normal tenant referencing, you might want to personally, or get your letting agent to check them out, check their social media, do a Google search on their name, see what comes up. I have a problem with a tenant at the moment who we are giving a section 21 to. Unfortunately, the letting agent didn't Google them. If they had, they would have found some things that we know now, in which case we wouldn't have put them in as a tenant. So just use the tools that are available, use the internet, see what you can find out about potential tenants. And all I'm saying is we have to be careful who we put into our property. Of course, you cannot discriminate against anyone. Luckily, supply and demand is that there are more people applying than property available. So you can be choosy, and you should be choosy who you take on, thinking about, is this tenant going to be right for this property? If it's an HMO, are they going to fit in with the other tenants? Is the property suitable for this person? One of the other things that's going to happen because of the Renters' Rights Bill, rather than having a 6 or 12-month AST contract, it's going to change to a periodic contract, and they could only be there for 2 months. So you really want to make sure that rather than moving in 2 months to say, I don't really want to be here, make sure the property is a good location for them, make sure they're a fit with the tenants, so when they move in, they like living there, and they're more likely to want to stay in the property for a longer time. So get the right information off the tenants, including their full name and national insurance number, so you can pursue them afterwards. Google them, check out their social media, make sure they're going to be a right fit for the person, and make sure your letting agent is doing the same thing as well. Then the other thing you need to do to make sure that you're not going to be the victim of rent repayment orders is, please make sure all of your paperwork is up to date. All your certificates are up to date and have been shared with the tenants when they move in at the correct time. And I would get them to sign to say they have had all the appropriate documents that you should be giving them. Evidence, documentation, that is going to be critical if you have to go to court in the future. You've got to show that you are a good landlord, as you should be, and you've been doing things correctly. So make sure you're evidencing things, keep all the information in a safe place, because you never know when you might need it. And with rent repayment orders, they're changing it to 2 years. Up to 2 years after a tenant's left your property, they could come back and make claims. Unfortunately, I think there are going to be law firms who are ambulance chasing firms who are doing this no win, no fee kind of business, deliberately going after landlords who've been a bit ignorant or ill-educated, or ones who just don't care, and encouraging tenants to do these repayment orders. I've even heard of some councils who, as well as are encouraging tenants who are subject to Section 21s and Section 8s to stay where they are, to stay put, because the councils can't afford to house people, they're also encouraging people to do rent repayment orders, which I think is just absolutely disgraceful. Councils, most of them don't have any money, and that's why many councils are introducing this selective licensing, which is just a way of making money, basically. If you have an HMO, generally 5 or more people, you need an HMO license. But even for a single let property, some councils are saying, right, we want all landlords to be licensed. Now, more and more councils are doing this. So one thing you need to do, you need to check that if you have a property in an area that needs a license, you get a selective license put in place. If you don't have a license, they'll give you 21 days notice. You need to get it in place. In Rachel Reeves' case, we heard recently, her husband was notified that she would have to have a license on their home that they were renting out, because they were now living in the very nice number 11 on Downing Street. And whether it's their fault, whether it's a letting agent, who knows? But still, ultimately, remember, it's your responsibility. So please, please check all your properties, check if there's and I'd say every 6 months or so, check, because the local council might be changing their policy. Now, one important thing you need to do, when you own a property that's registered at Land Registry, and what often councils will do is they want to find the owner, they will go to Land Registry and take the address listed for the owner. And if you have moved, maybe your current correspondence address might not be correct on Land Registry. They might be writing to an old address, you might not get that letter, and that can cause all sorts of problems. So one action I recommend you do, if only one thing, is check that all of your addresses, your correspondence addresses on Land Registry are up to date for all the properties that you own, to make sure you are getting official correspondence, to make sure you're adhering to all the regulations you need to be following. So I don't want to give you doom and gloom. I think we're seeing lots of landlords leaving the industry, which, by the way, is a good opportunity for those who are staying. I do hope you're out looking for lots of properties now, making offers, because lots of landlords want to sell and they want to get out. However, if you want to stay in for the long term, as I am, please, please make sure you're doing things correctly, make sure you're adhering to all the regulations, and being a great landlord, looking after your tenants and looking after your property, which ultimately, remember, is your long-term investment. Property values tend to go up over time. That's a trend that's going to continue, because we just don't have enough accommodation here. Make sure you're looking after tenants and looking after your property, and hopefully property will continue to do very well for you as an investment. If you enjoyed watching this video, if it's been useful to you, please come and like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and make sure you hit the bell icon to make sure you're notified anytime a new video comes out, because I'm going to do some very timely videos just after the budget and also after the Bank of England interest rate announcements. So make sure you do that. Come and comment below. Do you think governments generally are being unfair and penalising landlords where they shouldn't really be doing that? What's your view? I'd love to hear. Come and comment below. Until next time, invest with knowledge, invest with skill.